him for the precarious social climate his early passing had created. If Maggie was being honest with herself, and she usually was, she needed a rich husband, and she needed one now. There were several prospects present at this event, but to her they were vague blurs in the crowd. The girls were in town to pick out suitable attire for an upcoming stay at their cousin's country home and his wedding, and their aunt had been gracious enough to float them down Frith Street to a fashionable modiste, where Violet and Winnie made themselves apoplectic over silks, while Maggie fretted over ways to make their brief time in London productive. It had come to her attention that her aunt ran in the same social circle as one of the editors who had received a copy of Maggie's book in the post. He'd never responded, which had to be a mistake, because The Kilbride was exceptional stuff, and the people cried out for it. It had only taken minimal nudging from Violet, who possessed the theatrical charms of Sarah Siddons and the oratory cunning of the Prime Minister, to convince their aunt that this editor should receive an invitation to her poetry salon that coming Sunday. "No room should be this warm," said Violet, squishing around in her shoes beside Maggie. They had been barricaded by several ladies locked in conversation with the guest poet in the library, and though the fireplace was clear across the room, it was abnormally hot. "I think my hair is going to catch fire," she added. "Hurry up and humiliate yourself, Maggie, so we might go outside to relieve the heat." "Yes, do hurry," added Winnie, who looked equally miserable. Her golden brown ringlets were beginning to droop frightfully. "You look ridiculous with that thing under your arm," said Violet. "It's practical," Maggie replied, but it was a weak defence. "How else am I to convince Mr. Darrow to publish my work? He has to see it to experience its excellence." "You're not to do it at all," Violet reminded her. "You're to throw that sweaty kindling in the fire where it belongs and do as Mother wishes. You're to go on Auntie's arm to Mr. Gainswell or Mr. Terrington, make introductions and bat your eyelashes until one of them loves you, and then we can move out of the cottage and into a real house." "Impossible," Maggie sighed. Violet was right, of course, but reality wasn't about to get in the way of her dreams. "I can smell Mr. Gainswell's gouty feet from here," said Winnie, sensibly and in a whisper. "See, do you want to live in a stinky-foot house?" asked Maggie, glaring at Violet. Violet was somehow impervious to the damp heat in the room and looked perfect, as always, striking and pointed as a stuffed viper. "If it's grand enough," Violet murmured. "There is Aunt Eliza," said Winnie, pointing. "You should have her make introductions." "How are you going to explain that thing under your arm? She's going to notice," added Violet. Maggie frowned. "I hadn't thought of that." "Tell a story, sister. It's what you do best." Violet was not being encouraging. She didn't understand the pressure of being the eldest, of having to save the family from ruin while casting aside all thought of her dreams. Maggie wanted impossible things, to write her books and share them with the world and marry well enough to drag her mother and sisters out of poverty. They were surviving on their aunt's charity, for without a son, their father's sudden death had been a devastating blow, emotionally and financially. She couldn't decide what dear Papa wanted from her. As he lay dying, he had urged her to look to the family, and specifically to her sisters, to set an example, guide them, and help them find their way in a world unforgiving and unkind to the wrong sort of girl. The sort of girl that spent more time worrying about her novels than her future. The sort of girl who never bothered much with thinking about marriage prospects. And yet,